So, welcome to the Ideas Factory, Harsh. President Donald Trump has just concluded his Asia tour, and of course, his meeting with President Xi was the highlight. But before we go to the great power rivalry, how is it shaping up? I would like you to talk about, or rather analyze, what happened in America itself.
America is under threat from external forces, internal forces, and how America can be rejuvenated almost, this very, very Chinese term, but I think make America great again. I don't see the possibility of the two sides coming to some sort of a broader rapprochement. But what Mr. Trump certainly wanted, that he wanted to halt the downslide in the economic relationship.
With China, do you think there was some kind of a strategic compromise? He ceded more ground than he gained. How about India in this context? If we look at the punitive tariffs that he's levied on India, and one of the highest.
Looking at the economic and the strategic element separately. They're making a differentiation between the two, demarcating the boundaries.
How do you see the Afghanistan-India relationship vis-a-vis Pakistan? Because a lot of people also talked about how we are doing this just because we want to keep Pakistan in check. What are we looking at? The nuclear superpowers testing again, the Cold War escalation is probably back. How do you see the global order shifting? One last question, if we can sum this up. Hello and welcome to the Ideas Factory. I'm Nagma. We will be looking at President Donald Trump's Asia tour, his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, where President Donald Trump looked more enthusiastic than the Chinese side. What does it mean for the great power rivalry? We will be also looking at the India-US relationship with the defense agreement now being re-signed and extended for another 10 years. The elections in the New York City for the mayor's position and the victory of Zohran Mamdani. How is that going to impact the internal politics in America? On this episode of the Ideas Factory, we will be discussing China's rapid ascent and the US's recalibration that has been the most significant aspect of the changing world order. So how's the great power rivalry shaping up, and in which direction is the global order shifting? All of that on this episode of the Ideas Factory, and we have Professor Harsh Pant with us. So welcome to the Ideas Factory, Harsh. President Donald Trump has just concluded his Asia tour, and of course his meeting with President Xi was the highlight. But before we go to the great power rivalry, how is it shaping up, I would like you to talk about, or rather analyze, what happened in America itself. The election of the mayor and Zohran Mamdani winning it. How do you see this shaping up, and how will it affect the internal politics in America? How is it going to affect the Trump vote base? Zohran Mamdani is a Muslim candidate. He is the youngest mayor, and his base is different. But the whole MAGA thing that Trump can now go to town about, whatever Mamdani spoke, how is this going to affect?
I think, Nagma, it's one of those phases where one can look at the changing nature of American politics away from Mr. Trump. If you look at what happened this week, the way people voted, and the way, largely in blue states, how the Democrats were able to hold their own and expand their vote base. I think that is the real story. A lot of the demographics, for example, like youth, particularly men of color and Latinos who had voted in some number for Mr. Trump, came back to the Democrats this time, and I think that is what gave Democrats, whether it was the gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia, or whether it was New York City's campaign, that momentum and that expanse of victory. But I think we are still living in an age of Mr. Trump as far as American politics is concerned, and how he will frame it for his own base, and how he would try to reshape and reconfigure these victories for himself and for his party.
So do you think he's going to use this for his advantage? The victory of Zohran Mamdani and the elections in Virginia. So do you think this is going to benefit Trump in a way? He's going to use this for his own benefit?
I think he will certainly try to.
And how would that be possible?
Because, his base in the red states that had voted for him in large numbers last year, and that continues buy into his argument that that America is under threat from external forces, internal forces, and how America can be rejuvenated almost. This very, very Chinese term, but I think "Make America Great Again." The movement actually is a reflection of this idea that America has lost its mojo and we need to get it back. So I think in some ways, Mr. Trump, what Mamdani's victory in some ways would confirm to many of his strongest supporters is that the left and communist left, which he calls Mr. Mamdani, is now coming back and is threatening you in your big cities, is destroying the fabric of American society. And of course, you have an immigrant here who is a Muslim, who's trying to talk in ways which he would claim is very antithetical to the Rust Belt heart and soul of America. He comes from a very elite background, blue state, coastal states. I think that oppositional politics in which he has been so successful in the last few years, that certainly he will try to exploit this to his advantage. To what extent his base will continue to buy it, I think they will certainly buy it for the foreseeable future, as they've bought everything he has said so far. But I think one of the things that is coming off clearly in the numbers that we are seeing is that cost of living and economic challenges that people are facing, that is becoming a big issue. People largely voted for Mamdani or for the Democrats in these elections
on this ground, yes.
on this basis. So I think that element is certainly going to be the driver. He will try to pivot away from this. Trump will try to pivot away from this because cultural politics is where he gets his drive. But I think people are moving in some ways towards the bread and butter issues. And the success of Mr. Trump would depend on whether he can make the politics in America veer once again away from where people are trying to go towards the larger cultural issues, where he has a certain advantage as far as the red states are concerned.
So he's going to try very hard to do that and convince his voters that you are under threat because now a leftist, an immigrant person is there. And like lots of people have been writing about it, that probably is at the beginning of, I wouldn't call it a downfall, but Trump's popularity is probably coming down, but you see it as the other way around, that he may use this for his advantage, right? So that's a possibility.
I see his popularity. He's one of the most unpopular presidents at this point in American history. That is a given. I think where he succeeds and where he has succeeded is in, making his base come out and vote for him.
Vote for him.
So I think that strategy he will continue to use. More than this election, perhaps, we need to look at next year's midterm elections, because this was largely the blue states, Democrat states that voted, largely the Democratic electorate that voted. And I think the numbers are telling us a story, but they don't give us a definitive picture. There is a disillusionment, there is a disenchantment with Mr. Trump because his popularity ratings are going down drastically. That is a given. But I think his ability to convert it and to get his vote out, to make his MAGA base excited about some of the things that he's doing remains unmatched. What also remains unmatched is that the Republican Party is now a Trumpian, is now molded in Trumpian, mold. So there is no way you can get away from Mr. Trump. Even if Mr. Trump is out of the picture, where are those Republicans that are challenging him? So far, there are none. So even if Mr. Trump is facing disillusionment, he has already shaped the party in his own image, and that image it will drive American politics for the foreseeable future.
Whether he's there or not, his idea or like the Trumpian philosophy is very much there. Like he's calling all Democrats Mamdaites now.
Yes.
So
and I think while this election certainly is good for the Democrats, the fundamental challenge that Democrats also face is how do you calibrate internally between the so-called centrists and the progressives? That's a fundamental debate. Now, Mamdani is on the progressive side. But you have the centrists who have to win the red states, who want to fight from the center. Mamdani is, even in his victory speech, is still coming off as very left in what we see as the center of American politics. So
Absolutely.
I think that engagement within the democratic establishment
And
is
it's
going to be
interesting how
fascinating.
whatever Mamdani said in his victory speech, it has ignited a debate here in India as well, in quoting Nehru. Anyway, so move away from there and we look at Trump's Asia tour. So Trump was here. The highlight was that he met President Xi Jinping and he declared that meeting as the meeting of the G2. That enthusiasm that Trump showed was not really reciprocated from China's side. In fact, China went into this meeting on the back of punitive tariffs on rare earth. And it showed the kind of leverage that China has in critical areas, right? It has also cut down on imports. So how do you see this great power rivalry shaping up in future? Because, of course, we are in the Trumpian era and whatever he does now can just backslide with one of his tweets. So everything goes back to zero. But right now, how is this? What is the trajectory like if we talk about US and China?
I think that's the relationship to observe of. Obviously, it has the relationship sits at the very heart of the global order at the moment. And I think, as you rightly point out, where Mr. Trump has been almost ecstatic in saying some of the things that he has said post his meeting with the Chinese president. Chinese have been very circumspect. They have not talked of they have not used the word G2, and they, I don't think, believe that this is the beginning of a G2. G2, of course, you would remember has a trajectory that goes back to Obama days. It was there that Brzezinski, the former national security advisor, had used this term, saying that America and China can work together in global governance. And at that point in time, it was an all-encompassing relationship that maybe America can take care of this part of the world and China can take care of that part of the world, Pacific and Atlantic, and that's how we can divide our responsibilities. Along those lines, an argument was made in American circles under the initial years of President Obama, but it died a natural death because the fundamental realities of US-China relationship, pushed their way through, and the structural confrontation that started building up since then has now reached almost its zenith. So I don't see the possibility of the two sides coming to some sort of a broader rapprochement. But what Mr. Trump certainly wanted, that he wanted to halt the downslide in the economic relationship. So my sense is that when he talks of G2, without thinking, he's largely looking at it from an economic frame of reference. That I have now had a meeting with Xi Jinping. He has agreed to loosen the rare earth restrictions, and I have agreed to lower the tariffs. So we are now in a space where we can talk about economic matters in a sane manner. But if you see what also happened alongside, because this was part of his Asia trip. There was ASEAN visit, there was Japan visit, there was Korea visit. And of course, then after that came the APEC meeting where even our defense minister went, which was the defense ministers' meeting. Now, there, the tone was completely different because there the tone was more about strategic and security matters. So if you recall what Trump said to ASEAN members, that I'm here to stay, that America is here to stay. We will stay with you. We are your friends. We want to build this relationship. He gave some trade concessions to Cambodia and Thailand for making him happy about the Nobel Prize. But I think largely the tone was a continuation of the Biden era. That Japan, he went to Japan, where he said this is the most important commitment that America has. And he built on the relationship. And then, of course, you had this Korea visit and then the China visit. So what I'm saying is that there seem to be two parallel tracks going on. On economic matters, he's saying that, look, I am willing to sit with you, develop this G2. On the security side, strategic side, the relationship continues to be as challenging as ever. And with the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, also making his comments very, very strong. And of course, they're revising or continuing with the 10-year framework with India, India-US defense framework.
Yeah, I'll be coming to that. But with China and America, there is the base is that competitive confrontation, which will always be there, right? And when you talk about two parallel tracks, this is how This is how the great power rivalry is shaping it. This is how the global order is shifting. And also, with China, do you think there was some kind of a strategic compromise? He ceded more ground than he gained. He was more keen to do that rather than China.
I think he did, and by all accounts, and because China has that kind of leverage, particularly when it comes to rare earth and critical minerals, which is unparalleled in the world today. And that leverage they very wisely exploited in their negotiations with the Americans. So it came off as something that that perhaps from a perception point of view, Americans, Trump was ceding more, and China was ceding less. But I do think that the Chinese also wanted this because the economic challenges in China are there. They need sustained, predictable market in the US, which is a big market, important market. Recognizing that this is going to be challenging, recognizing that there is actually the political, there is no political capital for China in the US. If you forget Trump, if you look at even at his advisors. Whether it is Mr. Hegseth, whether it is Marco Rubio, whether it is the economic advisors, or if you look at the US Congress, there is a very strong anti-China sentiment in the country. So while Mr. Trump can talk and sit and talk of this G2, there is actually no base to sustain it. So Chinese also know it. And I think for them it was, to get a deal, even if it is short term, I think it helps them in more ways than one. But of course, the play here is that Mr. Trump had to cede the ground because Chinese were not willing to relent.
But how about India in this context? If you look at the punitive tariffs that he's levied on India, and one of the highest. Now with this defense agreement, which has been, it's not a new deal, we all know that. It has been signed for another 10 years. But will that pave the way for any kind of concession, or does it look like that it could help in that direction for some concessions that India could get, looking at the tariffs that India is now facing?
No, I think the Trump administration in the second term is, it seems, and what we have talked about China seems to cement this argument that they are looking at the economic and the strategic element separately. They're making a differentiation between the two. They are demarcating the boundaries clearly. I think strategically, if you think about the relationship, even when Mr. Trump has been vitriolic against India, you had NASA and ISRO continuing to do their joint activities, launching one of the most sophisticated satellites together. You had the militaries continuing to do their training exercises. You have now the defense agreement. You have the corporate, in some ways, the high-tech sector continuing to engage with each other. American companies continuing to come to India. So I think Ford has recently announced its next tranche of investment here. So in a sense, the strategic element remains in place. The trade element is where the problem lies. And I think a lot of this problem owes to the India-Pakistan issue and how Mr. Trump was not credited, and perhaps he has taken on board, because it seems that we have been very very near to an agreement a number of times, and yet something is coming in between. Now, whether it is Mr. Trump or whether it is some of the areas where we need to work more, one doesn't know. But I do
Mr.
think
Trump is trying everything. He is vitriolic, but at the same time, he even went on to praise Mr. Modi's killer looks.
No, I don't know.
What is he trying?
There is a method. Whether there is a method to his madness, but I think he has indicated a few times that he perhaps may want some flattery, given how.
So he's trying flattery elsewhere.
Yes,
too,
maybe, but I think his advisors should advise him, if they have not already, that this is almost not the way that Indian system works, because Prime Minister Modi has to work in a democratic space where he will get he will face the costs off, even if he looks as if he's trying to praise
Please and praise.
I mean, even when he's doing nothing, you can see the opposition coming at him and saying that, look, you are already surrendering and you have done this, you have done that. So I think given the democratic space, it may be wise for the US to realize, but I don't think that would matter, because I don't think Mr. Trump is going to change. He'll continue this approach. The question is whether the deal that is there on the table gets signed soon enough, because if that is not signed, then I think that this kind of persistent instability in the relationship will continue, because we will keep on doing the good stuff,
of course.
But I think a lot that can be done will not happen. And just a small point, you would recall, we have also, the Americans have also given India a 6-month waiver on Chabahar.
Yeah,
this is, it came after first the news came that, we are moving ahead, and then suddenly they shifted course. I think something is moving in the system, but we don't know how long it will take to come to the negotiating.
So when you mentioned Chabahar, I'm reminded of Afghanistan, the India-Afghanistan relationship, and how Muttaqi's visit here of course, attracted a lot of attention. This was the first time that a foreign minister of the Taliban government was interacting. And then there was a lot of discussion around this, even internationally, where what we did, was it all right? Of course, India has its strategic importance, independence, and it'll follow its own path. But how do you see the Afghanistan-India relationship vis-a-vis Pakistan? Because a lot of people also talked about how we are doing this just because we want to keep Pakistan in check. But of course, India has a right to do that. But India-Afghanistan relationship, is it entering in a different phase now with the Taliban government at the helm, and we are restarting our relationship there?
I think we started a while back. Gradual engagement started a while back with low-level engagement happening for some time. And I think for India, if you think of India's approach to Afghanistan, even when the previous government was there, before Taliban came back to power, I think the idea there was that India should be investing more in capacity building, infrastructure, building institutions, and humanitarian and humanitarian issues. So I think India's approach to Afghanistan had been more people-centric rather than regime-centric. After Taliban came to power 3 years back, I think that took a turn because the Taliban were not interested, and they certainly cordoned themselves off, because both India had certain reservations and they had reservations about the way things were moving forward. But given the new realities where Taliban is facing serious crunch, economic crunch, they're now governing. It's always, the realities of governance come to you when you actually start doing the hard work. And when the West is still reluctant to provide the kind of aid that they used to at one point in time. So I think Taliban has scoured for resources. I mean, they, of course, with Pakistan, it has gone down the
India faced a lot of
trunk.
criticism for that.
Yes.
For engaging with the Taliban government.
Yes.
And all that it stands for.
And I think, engagement is not endorsement. So you can engage with the regime, you can engage with the government without endorsing what they represent. And I do think that it is important for India to have channels of communication open. If you can say that, look, even during the worst phase of Russia-Ukraine war, our channels of communication were open with Russians and the Ukrainians. I think for a neighbor as important as Afghanistan, you really cannot let it be a black hole. So I do think that there is merit in that engagement, and that engagement is likely to lead to, I think, more granularity as we move forward. But I think while Pakistan is an element, it is not the most important element, because Afghanistan in some ways is once again becoming the center for great power politics. You have China there, you have Americans saying Bagram base, we need Bagram base, which is incredible that Trump administration believes that the Taliban, who fought the Americans and chucked the forces out, would invite the American forces back.
To take over the base again.
Yes. I mean, it's incredible, right?
And they have very clearly said that this is not happening.
Yes. And India actually endorsed the Taliban statement. So in a way, I think Afghanistan also allows India to project its strategic autonomy and to have a channel of communication with an important neighbor. So I think we are entering an interesting phase in India-Afghan relations.
With India-Afghan relationship, even though the Afghan government has not received endorsement from other parts of the world. Russia, of course, has endorsed. China has, but they have not officially recognized, as far as I
Russia
remember.
has officially organized,
recognized
China
it.
has not.
And now that reminds me of what is happening with Russia and US. That Ukraine war. The relationship has gone down really badly because of the Ukraine war, probably. That's what we understand, that it's the main cause is the Ukraine war. But the Russia-US relation has deteriorated sharply. And now with Trump saying or ordering the testing of the nuclear weapons and Russia reciprocating, what are we looking at? The nuclear superpowers testing again, the Cold War escalation is probably back? Or
I think we have entered a very seriously challenging phase in the global nuclear order, because we have seen that greater reliance on nuclear weapons has been growing. We have seen Russians talking about nuclear escalation in the Ukraine war at different stages when they have been
they've threatened a couple of
times. Then they have showcased their capabilities like Poseidon, underwater nuclear powered torpedo. We have had China expanding dramatically, and a few people talk about it because they do it silently, but it's on record how fast they are expanding.
But
the
actually,
nuclear
Trump
stockpile.
said that this was the reason why is he
Yes.
ordering the testing,
Yes.
right?
So I think in some ways you can imagine that he might be tempted that look, we may fall behind if we don't test. But the issue is whether he is also using this as a leverage when it comes to Russia-Ukraine crisis, whether by saying that, look, we are beginning to test and we are beginning to push back against you, whether that might be something that Russians will take seriously and will come to the
But the
negotiating
Russians are
table.
saying that they're just waiting for how America acts and they'll behave accordingly.
Yes, so I don't think that is going to work, and I think Russians have their own plans, and of course their aggression on the Ukrainian border is quite significant at the moment, because they feel that they have momentum on their side, and the winters are coming already, if not already come. So I think they are looking at the advantage that they could have before winters, so that if there is pressure during the winter for negotiations, then they come to the negotiating table with on the basis of their strength.
So we do see an arm race between the nuclear powers now.
Yes, I think we are in a different phase of nuclear weapons capabilities. I don't think the nuclear arms control architecture that we had in the past is working anymore, particularly the CTBT, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. America has signed it, but they have not ratified it, but they've signed it. And I don't think if the nuclear testing starts, then I think this will be a grave provocation to a number of emerging actors like Iran and North Korea. So you will see this escalation happening at not only at the strategic level between major powers, but also at the smaller scale. And of course, India, Pakistan being two cases in South Asia, which will also be directly impacted. India is already impacted by the expansion of China, but I think in terms of the tactical, capabilities that are now developing on the nuclear front, it's a very different world.
So if we see this arm race here, not just between the great nuclear-powered nations, also amongst the smaller states or smaller countries which possess nuclear power. At the same time, there is a trade war between the superpowers. America and China are already at the top of the economical pyramid. India is not at the top, but India is, climbing up there. How do you see the global order shifting? One last question, if we can sum this up. In which direction is the global order going, really?
I think there is more disorder and
there's no order.
Yes, and I think the problem is that we don't have. Usually, global orders are sustained by either a balance of power in the system, so that you have certain balances which allow for certain stability to inhere, or you have certain institutional frameworks that allow you to manage instability. For example, on the nuclear front, at one point in time in the last century, we believed that we had the arms control architecture between major powers and the NPT and CTBT, which will create a balance in the nuclear order. I think all that is seemingly dissolving. So we are moving to a disorder both on the balance of power front, which we have been discussing, that major powers are at loggerheads, and also at the institutional front, where major institutional frameworks are no longer working. So I think more disorder is likely to ensue before we find any order.
And that's how we're going to sum up this episode, that in the world order, there is no order really that we can see. There's more disorder, more chaos, and more churning happening right now. Thank you so much, Harsh.
Thanks.